Even though I knew many things about sexism in general, about the patriarchy and its mechanism, I was still shocked to see how much the music industry is still part of that and how little has actually changed.
I mean, being a female in a male-dominated industry, I mean, of course, there's definitely plenty points and times where, like, you know, you are treated differently because of that.
We were like, maybe we should open this up to men as well. Most of the women were like, no, please, please. And I was like, well, why? And they said that because the men will take over.
We have the power. We don't have to let them control the narrative.
You shouldn't question your ability to do what you want to do.
All you really had was just yourself, the internet, and I don't know, make it happen.
I've been making music almost half of my life, and I remember in 5th grade we had like a concert. I was singing in a choir, and we had that recorded, and of course the quality was super crappy, but we had that CD, and I remember it was so much fun to go back to this and re-listen and relive that moment, that I knew back then already that this is something I want to continue doing.
I don't think there was ever any point in time that I specifically said that I wanted to produce music. I've always been the singer-songwriter. I go from like gig to gig, open mic to open mic with like guitar in hand and just vocals. But it was really just like during the pandemic where we're just all sitting at home and it's like, what else do we do? It's like there were no distractions. Like, you're not going to work, but also like the bars, the clubs, everything was closed. So all you really had was just yourself, the internet, and I don't know, make it happen.
I actually never wanted to become a music producer. I was at drama school and I was really interested in singing. I was like writing songs a lot and I was singing a lot, like when I had time, like in the evenings. And I was looking for a software to record drafts of what I was singing. And so I actually downloaded like a trial version of a software, and I found out that I could actually like produce entire songs with it. And so I just sort of tried doing that.
I've been singing professionally for almost 20 years now.
I wanted to be a music maker from the time I learned how to record. On leap year day 2020, my dad died. That was about a week before COVID became a real thing. And by the end of that year, December, I was told that I had cancer. I was isolated. I didn't see my band, who are my family. I didn't see them for a year. And I had to find a new way to keep making music. So for my own sanity and health, I need to be creating. I started making songs on GarageBand because that's what I had access to. And then I got Logic X and started learning.
I actually never decided to be a music producer. It just sort of happened. Around 2016, I found myself with not much to do, looking for a new project. And I came across some music that I had written when I was in college. And I was looking at it and I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do something with this. I had no idea what, just something. But I needed something to occupy my time.
The short answer is yes.
I mean, being a female in a male-dominated industry, I mean, of course, there's definitely plenty points and times where, like, you are treated differently because of that. I think being a Black female in the music industry, at least for me, it's very specific about what's expected of me, especially being, the type of artist that is not only behind the camera, but also in front of it. I mean, we are literally the most sexualized group. And honestly, I know for a fact that I feel like I could have gotten way better if I led off with like titties and ass than where I am right now. But I don't know. I mean, I have the option to do it. It's not like I'm prude or anything like that, or I don't like my body. It's just like, it just doesn't resonate with me.
So when I started out producing music, I actually didn't even think about this. Like, it never crossed my mind that producing music, being a producer, was being perceived as like more of a male profession. It never actually crossed my mind, and that probably helped me because it never like stopped me or like held me back whatsoever. You shouldn't question your ability to do what you want to do.
Yes, absolutely they are, and we are. I have written my bachelor's thesis 4 years ago on sexism in pop music. And even though I knew many things about sexism in general, about the patriarchy and its mechanism, I was still shocked to see how much the music industry is still part of that and how little has actually changed. Since I wrote the thesis, not that much has changed. If you view representation, if you see how festivals, for instance, how the lineups are, the representation of female artists, may they be musicians, yes, sometimes singers, especially, this is where the representation is the biggest. But the more you get into the technical field, the less female artists you can find, which is really shocking. And it's not because there is a lack of them. I'm sure that's not the issue. The issue is that, it's the world hasn't changed that much, especially in the music business.
Unfortunately, ways that, we're treated differently. It's just like when you're in a space of predominantly men, it can get a little bit unsafe. It can be a little bit dangerous, Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of times where like, I'm done with the gig, heading back to my car, and lo and behold, somebody who was a little bit too interested in me inside the venue decides that they want to walk out and basically follow me to my car. So yeah, I've had that happen a few times. Luckily, it never got too out of hand, but it's definitely like a scary thought to have to like deal with that.
Like in any field that you go in as a woman, you are being treated differently to men. And that is just part of our society, a lot of subconscious biases, which is really difficult to pinpoint because it's kind of unspoken things or just their kind of thoughts or feelings where people feel more they can trust more a male artist, and that's just, patriarchal brainwashing, basically. I've had experience where people gave me feedback who said, oh, I don't know anything about songwriting, but I feel it should be this way, it should be that way, and you need to do it this way and that way, where I feel like a man wouldn't be told how to do the job that you spend a lot of time and years kind of learning and teaching yourself.
And one thing that I noticed straight away is how differently I was being addressed to the male artists that performed that night. So usually I would be called sweetie or honey or something like that, whereas the male artists never got to hear like, oh, sweetie, you need help with your guitar setup, right? So this was definitely something, this form of belittlement that does not happen to male artists. And also what I know from friends of mine is that you constantly get underestimated, especially when it gets technical.
Maybe we should open this up to men as well.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the women were like, no, please, please. And I was like, well, why? Mm-hmm. And they said that because the men will take over.
Yeah,
And it's true. And I don't think they do it out of any kind of, bad intentions or prejudice necessarily, or dismissiveness. I think it's just, I don't know. I think maybe men put themselves more forward than women. And when men do that, women tend to, recede into the background.
I've never had any bad experiences, or I never felt discriminated because of being a female artist. I don't really like that people just feel like they have to flirt with you. I didn't really like being in the center as like someone like a piece of meat for those wolves out there. But this was something I had to deal with.
I was the only femme in the music technology program that I'm aware of in 2006. I could be wrong. If you're out there, say hi, please. Do you, other than your beautiful voice, ever contribute musically? This question reframed the interview from being about my band to being personal. Like, that question was nasty. All of the male musicians that have ever been asked that question in an interview, send it my way.
Online, it's very much that when you're female or when you're non-binary, you have to prove that you know things before you're treated like you deserve to be in the space with them. I was in a workshop this one time, and the person who was leading the workshop, he was like, "Hey, do you know what sidechaining is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what sidechaining is."
As women become more visible in the industry in a variety of roles, not just the lead singer in the band or whatever, that people will change their attitudes, and I think people want to be more inclusive. I really do. I have a very optimistic view of this. Why would you, eliminate half of the population simply because they're not male? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
I have to talk about this stuff. It's got to come out. It's my truth. It's not just my experience. Just because I'm the one talking about it. I get so tired of people saying, "Oh, I'm sorry that's been your experience," as if that distances them from the problem. Come on. Fuck that.
Best advice is actually to just start. So work with what you have, use the songs you've already written. Like, if you have a song that you've been working on and it's like almost ready to release, like, sure, you should only release like your best work, but I think it's much better to be able to release a song that's good instead of like polishing it for like months and months no end and then end up not using it.
Like a DAW and maybe a MIDI keyboard can help you do it faster, but you don't even need that. So I believe that if you have ideas and if you'd like to write songs, then you can just do it. I'm an indie artist and I've been doing everything on my own, from PR to up to music, and I hope it's gonna pay off on this hard work.
Oh, what would I tell somebody if they wanted to be a producer in regards to like where to start? Oh man. I mean, honestly, the best place to start is the basics. Like, learn your music theory, learn an instrument. If you have the opportunity and the option to learn an instrument, definitely go for it. Don't not go for it. You feel me? Learn an instrument. Like, it'll never be a hindrance, it'll never slow you down.
Be nice. Like, reply to your emails. If someone sends you a message telling you that they love your music, like, reply to them. Don't ignore them. I actually recently got a job of like a conversation on socials. So I was talking to someone I've worked with like many years ago actually, and turned out they were like looking for an actor for like a play they were directing, and so we talked about it, and I actually ended up getting that job, just because like I replied to their comment and we like started talking. I might not have ended up getting the job if I had just like ignored them.
What actually is a music producer? So in a very sort of high level sense, a music producer is someone who has a particular vision, metaphorically, of a piece of music and how it's supposed to sound and what it's supposed to say and how the listener is supposed to react.
So if I were to get started now as a music producer, I would watch a lot of YouTube tutorials, like first and foremost. Second, I would find like some of the big DAWs, like Ableton, Reason. The most important thing is that your music will be trash in the very beginning, and it will be trash for a very long time. And you have to realize that when it's trash, you're going to be making trash for a long time, and do not get discouraged. So the most important thing is this, like, do not psych yourself out when you're making music.
Your art needs oxygen, right? Go out, find people who are at your level or higher, right? Join groups, network with people. If you want to be a composer or producer, then produce, compose, just do it. Do it every day, even if it's, 30 seconds of music.
If you're not a music producer, I think the misconception is the amount of time that it actually takes. Like, don't get me wrong, like some people can work really, really fast and they can come out with a really strong, solid, rough draft in, less than an hour, right? But it's more than just that. Like, you can come out with a really dope, rough draft, the first take, a really good beat, like within the first time that you try it. But like the amount of time it takes to like go back in, to tweak everything, to mix everything, master everything, make sure that it's ready for streaming platforms, there's a lot of time that goes into that. I mean, it takes forever just to find like the right snare, and that's just like half a second of a whole song.
I think most people underestimate just how much or how little you actually get to record stuff. If you're a music producer, then you're basically a project manager. So most of our time is going to be spent not in the studio and not recording, but doing different stuff.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people have who are not music producers is that what we do is really, really easy, and it is not.
That's one thing I will say about producing, is that you be ready to listen to your song like thousands of times.
Some people confuse a producer with a manager, right? Or with maybe even with a recording engineer, the person who sets up the mics in the studio, right? So, and a producer is that, but it's a lot more. Some people might have this attitude, this sort of you ought to open a restaurant attitude, I call it, which is, you make a great meal for your friends and they say, you're such a good cook, you should open a restaurant. When actually opening a restaurant involves far more than just being able to make a good meal. Before in-home studios were as prevalent as they are, a producer was very often a different person than the artist. But these days, the producer and the artist are the same person.
The misconception about music production, I would say, is that people think it's much harder to get started. It doesn't take much to get started with music production. Anyone can do it who has a computer and a okay set of headphones. You can start in your own bedroom with a laptop and some headphones. And I think that is really empowering for anyone out there who kind of doubts themselves. If that is what you love, music production has always interested you and it kind of really interests you, with love and dedication, you can learn so many things.
I usually start with the basics, like beat and sub bass and stuff like that, just like sort of get a frame. Sometimes it can actually help to like outline it visually, like create a drawing of your song. Like, I don't know if anyone else does this, but it actually helps with larger projects.
So for me, I start my compositions in usually one of two ways. The most common these days anyway is sitting at the piano and just improvising.
Sometimes it helps if you're like open to your song, like maybe changing a little. One time I went to visit that guy, like I was using his home studio. I was recording like actually one of my first songs, and I used his home studio and I was recording this like toned down nice version of this song, and like the guy was sitting there like listening all the time, and then all of a sudden he was like, okay, like why don't spice things up a little, you know, like maybe it's a breakup song, so maybe like throw the F word in there from time to time and like swear a little more, and like and so I was like, okay, yeah, why not? And so I ended up with this like much more explicit version of the song, which I actually liked.
They usually start production with the music. So for them, the musical idea is not really the vocals. I've had these limiting beliefs for very, very long years, and I'm like, wow. I'm 38 very soon, and I'm still scared a little bit, but I've started playing the guitar and the piano, music theory, and it's just like, it's crazy what your mind is capable of. Like, it just makes you believe that you're not ready or you're not good enough, and you just have to make a decision that, nah, you are.
I would say put your phone away. Put your phone away. Another thing to avoid, I would say excessive drug and alcohol consumption. There's like this misperception that like if you're really drunk and you're really high, like you create your best work. I'll tell you from personal experience, I have never created my best works while inebriated in any sense. I will listen to it the next day and it is complete garbage. So I've made it a rule, especially like for myself, like I am not going to be like shit-faced drunk. I'm not going to be high as fuck while I'm making music. Trying to get to perfection, like that shit doesn't exist. You're gonna drive yourself crazy. I have driven myself crazy by trying to achieve perfection when it comes to like making this music. Like it just doesn't exist.
I would say to pull that volume low as you possibly can, and you can still hear everything. It's so important to preserve your ears. Those are your moneymakers. Protect them at all costs.
Switch off everything and stay focused. Don't be a perfectionist. Just enjoy producing, and do not overthink anything.
The industry is built off of being exclusive. You feel me? I don't think there's I mean, listen, there's always room at the table for everybody, but I don't know, going based off of current business models within the current music industry, I don't think there's much else to do for the industry to be inclusive without coming off as if you're pandering. Quite frankly, I don't know. Maybe we should just make our own new sub-industry that starts off as inclusive.
This is very easy for me. Speaking of personal experience as a mother of an almost 7-year-old daughter, it is definitely include parenthood and make parenthood visible in the music industry. Because let's be honest, it's not an issue. Either you have artists, female artists, non-binary artists that have kids, yes, but their careers are already established. But starting your career or being at the point, at the verge of taking it to another level, it becomes very difficult if there are kids involved the younger they are. And I'm at a very lucky point in my life, so to say, because me and my kid's father, we are co-parenting equally. right? So we are a very good team, and from a very young age on, we have decided that we want to raise the kid, if not as a couple, definitely as a parenting team together in equal parts. So this is really necessary, but not everyone has that. This is a very privileged position. And even with that, it can get challenging, right? Because the music industry expects you to be available 24/7, on and on and on. And it's very hard for parents to deliver this.
In other industries, I think work is to first of all have more women in the positions of power and decision making, in terms of that they can say and decide over what goes and what doesn't go, but also for people and for other women to look up to and be like, oh, this woman managed to get there, so actually I see it's possible for her, so it can also be possible for me.
I think in this business especially, it's important that you look after your mental health. Especially if you feel like the rejection is getting to you, it's important to have like your supporting system, like your friends, your family, like just someone to talk to.
So I wrote my own piece, because that is one thing, now, at least now with social media, we have the power. We don't have to let them control the narrative. For so many years, we didn't have that, and now we do.
What you need to try to do is not compare yourself to others in a negative way. Like you can identify somebody who is successful in something that you want to be successful in too, and try to emulate them. But try not to get into the, I'll never be able to do what X does, right? So try not to do that. Instead, look back and see how far you've come. You might actually be on the brink of some success and you don't know it. This is probably the best time to be an independent artist, because the technology is astounding.
Right into the next thing, right into the next thing. Yeah.